Welcome to Big Blend Radio's first Friday Toast to the Arts and Park Show with the National Parks Arts Foundation, who are known for their amazing artist residencies in parks across the country. As you hear about, National Parks Arts Foundation creates unique artist and residence programs within national park units, even state parks. And today on Big Blend Radio, we're going to talk with the photographer William Bretzger, who for the past three weeks is the foundation's artist in residence at Gettysburg National Military Park, which means he gets to stay in that beautiful house in a beautiful pastoral setting. And I hear there's deer and beautiful sunrise and sunsets, and it's just, of course, all the history as well. So very excited to chat with him. Definitely, if you're an artist, if you're a writer, a poet, a musician, these programs are incredible. And I think Gettysburg is one of the most comprehensive artist in residence programs. They have so many different types. Go to nationalparksartsfoundation.org, and then also go look at photographer William Bretzger's work. He's on Facebook and Instagram at Gettysburg Camera. Welcome to the show, Bill. How are you?
Good. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
We're excited about this. We've covered Gettysburg about 3 or 4 times now on the show, and it seems to me we've never been there. We are on a quest to visit every one of the 417 national park units, but we've done a lot on the west and the south, but we haven't got to Gettysburg yet. But I heard that you've been photographing at Gettysburg for over 20 years?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't get here that often. Maybe it might be once a year. It might be 3 or 4 times a year, a couple overnight stays. Certainly nothing like what I'm doing now, which is almost 4 full solid weeks of just living on the battlefield, getting up before dawn, being on the battlefield already, having my camera ready and going out. I have tried to make the most of it. And about 3 weeks in, a little bit more than 3 weeks in, I'm fairly exhausted right now of all the work I've done, but I'm not going to have any regrets at the end in terms of missing any opportunities.
I know that you do a lot of photography in the news world and for newspapers. What's it like really being immersed for 4 weeks? I know with us being in the publishing industry, there's always a deadline. And to me, when I think about a residency where you get to just focus on creativity for a full month, like that sounds like a really good vacation, but as you're saying, it's hard work. Does your focus change of what you're capturing versus when you come for a few days, when you come out there for a couple days or a couple nights?
It absolutely changes. One thing, I don't feel rushed at all. I don't feel like, I'm only here for an overnight stay. I'm only here for a day trip. I really want to put some film through my camera. I got to get this done. If the light isn't perfect or at least pretty good, I can wait. It's a totally different way of working, and it's completely unlike anything I've really ever done. Photojournalists are able to work for long periods of time on one story. I live in a daily newspaper world where I might have 2 or 3 or sometimes crazy number of assignments a day, and it's just on to the next one. This is obviously not photojournalism. It's more landscape, and I consider it documentary photography. I've held a few different genres I'm working in when I'm here, but it is way different from my normal everyday kind of job.
What is it about Gettysburg that attracted you to it's a military park, which is unique too. What was it that first got you out there, and what is it that keeps drawing you back?
Well, I guess I first came out here with my brother, who was interested in the movie Gettysburg, and so many people of my generation got into Gettysburg because of the movie Gettysburg, which was released in the early 90s, and I think they had a wave of popularity where they really peaked in terms of attendance. Now there's still something like 1.5 million people come here every year. Well over 1 million, whatever the number is. And I just kind of got hooked on it. It's a beautiful place. It's very serene, but there's also evidence of the struggle of really the horror that happened here. That it's a very odd situation that you have this beautiful place, but it was also a place of just destruction. And you can tell the stories through photos, or at least hint at what happened here. And it's also such an important part of American history. I've always liked history. My parents used to take us, we wouldn't go to the beach so much as go to historic homes and tours like that. Cool. So it's always been kind of ingrained in what I do.
Do you get any feelings of any areas being haunted?
Oh, you always ask
that. It's just like it should be haunted.
I can say that I have not had any experiences on the battlefield. I'm not going to completely rule things out. I don't want to offend people who There's quite a few people who swear by it, who come out here. People look for it. I'm not looking for any kind of haunting. I have not had any experience there. Certainly, if you're out here after dark, if you're up here, before dawn, there's a mood and there's a feel. And it's certainly, if you open yourself up to looking for an experience, you can feel something. But I can't say that I have. It's not something that I'm particularly looking for or really, frankly, buy into, maybe is the way to put it. But it is something that people do. It is a facet of the battlefield that certainly has become more and more popular, I guess you can say, over the past, just in the time that I've been coming out here, over the last 20 years or more.
So you're working in film?
I work in
digital?
film, I work in digital. I have a few different projects that I've been working on, and maybe I should focus down more closely. Most of what I'm showing today is digital, what you see on the Facebook site, digital work. I like to, especially something like this where I'm here 24/7 for a few weeks, to really make the most of all that time. I work in large format photography. It's not quite my specialty. There's certainly people who are better at it technically. It's a bit of a struggle that I've been working through, and this has been a kind of a workshop for me on the 4x5 and even 8x10 large format photography, which kind of harkens back to the earliest photos made here. But the digital is something that, as you mentioned about the projected portraits, I kind of marry history with the scene. A lot of that, or all of that, is done digitally. I also do some digital photography in terms of using mixed light, like the work in the dawn and dusk, the margins of light where it's very moody, and I incorporate my own flash or flashlight into the scene. I do what's called painting with light, which is gaining popularity, but I do it a little bit differently, I think, in terms of just how I accomplish it. Get a little different look, give it try to impart the mood of the scene, try to tell the story of the scene. You can really focus. If it's 80% of the scene is mostly in dark, and you can use a flash or a spotlight, flashlight to focus attention on a monument, face on a monument, or a scene where something important in particular happened on the battle. That's what I'm looking for in my digital work.
Creating ghosts, you know that.
I know.
Yeah, some of the portraits, people have reacted in that way. They say it's almost creepy, some of the pictures, because let me paint the picture, if I can, of what these images look like. If you're not online looking at them or seeing them, I take the historic portraits usually, and like I said, marry them into the scene of where, let's say, there's a general and something important happened to him at this scene. I try to project that image onto the scene, or include almost like an inset photograph into the landscape. I look for canvases out on the field, like blank white buildings or monuments that don't have a lot of writing, where I can find a spot where, all right, this is where, in one case, say General Sickles, who was this notorious Union character, he made what most people think was an ill-advised move, and that really changed the outcome, or changed the whole picture of the battle. He's associated very closely with this one spot where he was injured and hit by artillery fire and lost his leg. And I have projected his image into onto the white facade of the barn, right where that took place, right on the field where he's most closely associated with Gettysburg. So it's almost, like I said, some people find them almost creepy. Some are almost like haunting images. Sometimes there are people who had died in the battle. Sometimes just people who are heroic, or just almost anonymous privates. It could be a whole range. Whatever I can find a good historic image and find a good place to associate that face with the field.
I think you're bringing people to life, and I think sometimes when we go through a battlefield or an area, there's definitely that feeling. I know, especially dawn and dusk. There's something about dawn to me that really, I don't know, it's my favorite time, dawn and dusk. Even to go into a new town on road trips, it's just like, what's happened. But battlefields, when you're out there, I think that what's so interesting is there's all the sculptures that you're working with too. And there's this one, and I think I'm looking at it now. It's Union General, is it Kemble Warren's monument on Little Round Top, and it's like beautiful and pink, and you see the sculpture, and you're taking it from the back, and he's looking out, and it's like at the first glance you feel like there's like a general looking out of what's going on and what he's going to do that day, who's watching him. It's like, oh wow, that sets the scene for a battle right there. Like what's going on. And so to me, the way you're using the sculptures and then doing the same thing even with the cannons and the sculptures, using not only the light of the natural light at sunrise, sunset, but when you're doing the projections and using those as well, there's this life that you're putting to, whereas normally if we're walking through, if there wasn't sculptures and things, you don't quite get the battlefield as much, but you're bringing it to life. So I think people understand that people were involved, if that makes sense.
And that Warren Monument is probably one of the most photographed spots on the battlefield, if not the most photographed spot. And people love to go up there at a sunset, just watch the sunset. I'm still surprised that more people, you mentioned dawn. Here we are right around the anniversary of the battle, probably one of their busiest times, if not the busiest. And I would still go out at dawn and pretty much have the battlefield to myself. And it's kind of puzzling to me that why more people aren't experiencing it at these really quiet times, really serene, very contemplative time. It's just a beautiful place to begin with. And then you mix in this history and it's just so thought-provoking, you just get lost out there. And yet 99% of the experience that people have is coming out at high noon. And I know people are traveling or vacationing or whatever, that they can't always get up at the crack of dawn. But at the very least, be there for the sunsets, just to maybe not to make that kind of postcard classic view, but just to enjoy the light, turn away from the sun and see what it's doing the rest of the battlefield.
That's a huge point. I know Nancy and I, with us when we travel and go into parks, historic or not, I mean, even here, we walk in the mornings, but we're there before the sunrise because number one, it's hotter than hell. but you go out in the morning and to watch the sunrise, I mean, there's this life force and the birds and everything move with it. And it's like you are part of whatever that ecosystem is. And that's even in a historic setting. There's that, what were people doing? Were they sitting with their camps and, getting their coffee? And you just feel like you're part of that rhythm of the day. And there's something, all the parks we go to, we never see people at that time.
No, never.
And I'm like, how are you going to see wildlife? How are you going to get those photos? And there is this high noon thing and you see high noon all over the place. And yeah, you get caught in that, having to do that sometimes and still take the photo. People do take it, but
you don't see
you're missing that. And I think, people should go out as early as they can to these parks.
There's a difference in color, at least out here, when the sun's rising out here in Tucson, Arizona. I call it the Arizona sunrise pink that glows and changes how the trees look and everything. And then in the evening, the sunset, there's pink, but it's a totally different color of pink. So you get two kinds of different shades and colors on the trees especially. In the morning, they're kind of like slate bluey pink. And then in the afternoons when the sun is going down, they're kind of orangey green.
Or dead. No kidding.
Yeah.
Right. I'm kidding. Yeah,
no. But, so you miss a lot by going out just around noontime, I think.
No, totally agree.
Bill, I know that you work in digital, but you also said large format, and I was reading up that you do dark room stuff, and you've done that for years. Are you still doing your own dark room work?
Yeah, in fact, I set up a little dark room here in the Klingel house, which is the house where the artists and residents stay. It's been a bit of a struggle. It's actually might be a little better setup than I have at home, which is just a shared garage with bicycles and the washer, dryer, and all that. But they have it set up very nicely. I mean, I was worried it might be, just a hand dug dirt floor and maybe a crawl space, but I think when the house was renovated and restored about 9 years ago or so, they dug down, they made a full basement, a concrete floor and everything. So the Klingel house itself is this kind of a squat, square little house. It's on this right on the Emmitsburg Road, which was an important line through the battlefield. The Confederate troops smashed through the Union line, the house was just swarming with soldiers around the fields, artillery. There's monuments on either side. It's an amazing location to be in, to be staying in. Unfortunately, today, this is the beginning of Bike Week, and my motorcycle friends have been rumbling by. I hope it or maybe you can get a little natural sound of the motorcycles rumbling up and down the Emmitsburg Road.
Yeah.
But it is a very cozy little house. I'm very appreciative for it. It's log structure. In fact, the Union troops occupying the house as the Confederates swarmed in knocked out the chinking between the logs and were firing from the living room, what is now the living room of the house. So where at night I might sit down and watch some TV or something and have a late night snack. There were soldiers apparently firing right from that spot. There were the poor Klingle farmer who returned to his farm, came back to a scene of total devastation. Bodies buried not far from his front door. Dead horses in places. The history, you can't help but feel it when you're.
How involved do you get? I mean, because to me, you're dealing with this history of people, and getting to know all the different generals and the soldiers. How in depth do you go when you start photographing? I mean, especially what you're doing with projecting their faces onto the different walls, which I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that in a national park unit before, by the way. I don't know how many people do that. But how involved do you get with starting to research who they were?
Some of them are really well known, like, say, a Robert E. Lee type or some of the top Union generals. But just last night, I have this book, I believe it's called Pieces of Gettysburg, where it's basically just a book of, it's almost like a police, they call those mug books, where they just had mug shots that you could flip through looking for somebody who might have committed a crime against you. It's just page after page of faces. So these are all participants at Gettysburg. Some of them survived the battle and went on to a long life. Some of them didn't survive. I was looking for someone associated with Devil's Den, one particularly striking part of the battlefield. And I found a few faces, and I was able to make a picture that I'm pleased with. And this one's a colonel, apparently survived the battle, and I think survived the war. I don't know a lot about him, but I know that he was there, and it certainly strikes me as somebody I want to learn more about. And there are plenty of people who were at that point in Devil's Den who didn't survive the battle. I want to learn more about their story too. And so there's just there were maybe 200,000 combatants here between the two armies.
Wow.
And all of them have a story. Everyone. I mean, some of them have multiple unbelievable stories, and many of them, we lost their stories when they died. They didn't live another 50 years and write memoirs about what they did here. So it's you can never know everything about Gettysburg, and I've only started to scratch the surface.
Do you think you could create a battlefield scene right on the battlefield with ghosts?
Well, some of what I have tried, not as successfully, is some of the historic photos, kind of projecting them into the scene as it appears today. And I haven't been really happy with how that's turned out. I'm not really sure why. First of all, there aren't a lot of them, and so you're kind of limited in the places and that kind of thing. But it's the kind of thing that I certainly have pondered, put it that way, because that would, any way to increase that sort of storytelling aspect of the photography.
What I want to ask you, because I know that it changes for artists. We've interviewed some that are on their way there, some who are finished, and Tanya Ortega, the founder of the National Parks Arts Foundation, she's usually on the shows, but right now she's in Vietnam. So I hope she's having a good time. But she, it's always interesting, this conversation of when artists submit their proposals of this is what they view of what they're going to do, when they're there and what they're going to create. And I know that they're incredibly open to all kinds of mediums. And I mean, they really understand art for what true art is and the true creative expression. I think the percentage has been like 90% or 80% or 90% of what the artists say they're going to do changes, and they're very open and fine about that because it's art. Having gone to Gettysburg so many times, has your idea of what you were going to do changed?
Yes and no. I mean, I went out here with the intention of continuing the projected portrait series. I believe that made up all or a large part of the application that I had submitted, and they seemed pretty excited about that. And I was able to accomplish that. I'm pretty happy with the work that I've done. I'm going to continue that these last couple of days. I also, like I said, wanted to make the most out of my time. That work occurs in that small window of dusk and dawn, or these days just dusk with when the park is officially open. And so in terms of the film work, the large format, and actually a lot of I do as well the medium format, a little bit of a step below in terms of the technical challenge of the large format. I haven't been really pleased with the work that I've done, but I'm still trying. That's more, like I said, I'm kind of workshopping that. Yes, I have accomplished pretty closely to what I wanted and said I would do. And no, I haven't done quite as much as well as I would have liked in other aspects. But I try to look at that as a good thing, not as a regret. It's you can't be happy with your work. You got to keep pushing it.
Like we said too about the workshop thing, I think that's the other part of this. These artisan residencies, they're also educational. It's a place to grow as an artist. Not just here put out a series of work and do an event. It's about growth and learning something new and kind of pushing yourself into a different horizon with your art. So I think it's interesting, and I love what you're doing. I think it's so fascinating, and it's like, wow, I wish we were there for your event tonight. And I know that's going to be at the David Wills House. So can you tell us what the David Wills House is about?
Yeah, well, that is right smack dab middle of Gettysburg. It's right on the square, the center of town. You can't get any closer to the center of town than David Wills' house. David Wills was I believe a prominent attorney in town, and he kind of was the genesis for the creation of the National Cemetery here after the battle. It's the house that Lincoln stayed in. I believe he's the one who extended the invitation to Lincoln, if I know my history correctly, to have him come out and speak at the dedication of the National Cemetery a few months after the battle. So it was him, David Wills, who kind of set up the Gettysburg Address to take place. And the house is part of the Park Service. It's this beautiful, large home. It's been described to me as kind of halfway between a museum and halfway between a historic home, because they have the bedroom where Lincoln stayed in set up as close as they can recreate it to how it was when he was there. And the rest of the house is filled with exhibits and displays about basically about the Gettysburg Address and some of the civilian experience of the battle, the aftermath, what the address meant. I'm very pleased to be showing my work there. It is a very informal situation tonight. I'm not matting and mounting all these prints. I'm trying to show them in a reasonably respectful way of doing right by the work, but without, like I said, it's a pop-up exhibition. I'm very casually kind of using board to fasten them to, and they'll be placed probably about 28 or 30 images. Haven't narrowed it down. I'll probably won't know until I set it up tonight. Kind of on easels, mainly smaller prints, or I should say all smaller prints, like 8 by 12 inches. Trying to keep it manageable for someone like myself on the road, if you will, doing this sort of very temporary installation. But it's right there in the Wills house, and I'm very much looking forward to experiencing that as well.
So I know Nancy's first thing in her head, I just want to guess if this is right, Nancy. Your first thing is, can you project Lincoln's body on the bed?
Well, yeah.
See, that's it.
See? Wouldn't it be cool? Especially if you didn't tell anybody you were going to do it and they walk in and then you do it.
I know. Like, there it is. That would be freaky. It's
kind of like Disneyland.
That's cool.
So haunted house,
I love that you are still working with the darkroom and then at the same time working digitally. And then I know that there's processing with both sides. What's it like going between the two? I mean, are there things that you prefer, processing through the darkroom side of things and getting in your hand and all the chemicals and all that and doing, that kind of color work versus going and doing the Photoshop? Are there highlights to like, do they both have separate qualities is what I'm trying to ask.
Oh, absolutely. And when I should say, working in the darkroom, I tend to think, oh my gosh, I wish I could just take the slider tool, to this right here, burn down this highlight exactly. there. And then when I'm sitting in front of the computer, I think, oh my gosh, I wish this were on such a more sort of organic medium, something that you could feel and kind of draw the tone out of this here in the dark room. So I enjoy both. I prefer, if I can, to be working in the dark room. Sometimes the computer is just so much more expedient, especially in this situation where, again, I'm resident, but I'm still in a home away from home. This isn't quite the permanent setup as much as I tried to make it. So, but just like everything, there's compromises. Yeah, that's right. I'll have to check the Pennsylvania laws on squatters' rights and see how long that takes.
No, really, squatters' rights on a national park battlefield.
Working digitally, there's a kind of a look to it that is hard to get away from. And there's so many tools and things that make things faster, for sure. But there's kind of like these pattern things if you're trying to create a texture, but it's not a free-for-all texture. Like if you're going to pound something by hand, it's never going to look the same over and over and over and over again. But when you're doing digital work, it kind of looks the same. You know, it's too patterned.
Yeah, in fact, but no, I mean, partly why not partly, but that's a big part of the reason why I do the projected portraits. I mean, you could try to Photoshop those faces in there, but it just wouldn't look right. You can see how the light kind of, in certain situations, kind of wraps around the item. It has, maybe there's decorative molding that cuts through somebody's chin, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think it shows, it kind of gives some legitimacy
Texture.
to it. It doesn't seem, it doesn't have that sort of computer artifice. I mean, it is a creation of mine. I'm printing something out on a computer, I'm putting it into a slide form, I'm projecting that with a flash of light at 1/1000th of a second or something. It exists in that form and captured in camera, and with a longer exposure to kind of allow the scene to be read on the image. So it's a creation, but it's different than if we're all just created in the computer.
I know.
Yeah.
So do you think this experience now that you've done a residency or you're almost done with it, do you think it's going to change your daily work in a newspaper as a photographer? Is it going to change your mind? Do you think you're going to, I don't know, is it going to affect what you do on a daily basis?
I guess we'll find out in a week or so when I get handed my next assignment. But I think it'll change how I do the work outside of work, for sure. The work sometimes it's a struggle to be creative in some of those forms where you're kind of boxed into situations. But it'll definitely have a lasting impact on some of the ways that I see my work from here.
You could project somebody into a crime scene that wasn't even there.
I know. Here she goes. She's so into this. I know. We so want to be there, but it's so great that you photographed that. I mean, it's so we can all see it and experience it. And so I really encourage people to go on your Facebook and Instagram page. Everyone is at Gettysburg Camera. Now, two things before you leave us here. One is I always like to ask, artists and photographers, musicians, any kind of tip that you can share with somebody getting started or interested in the world of photography of any kind of genre, whether they're going to work in a newspaper like you or a magazine or go out and do the creative art side of things. What tip would you give them?
Try to find a way to be different, I would say, because there's just so much sameness in the world in terms of how people operate. You really have to find a style. Don't force it, but keep looking to be different. I mean, that's partly how I came upon the portrait projection idea, was trying to be different, because there's so much good work in national parks on places like Gettysburg, on the pastoral scenes and beauty. That would be my main advice. My first thing, right off the top of my head, would be stand out in some way.
Well, I've got two questions. I'm sorry. Here it is. Because I have to go back to the house. How's the peach tree? Because I hear that there's this really cool peach tree and there's like a peach pie recipe or something in there that someone made. I don't know. So we need to know the status on the peach tree. Does it have leaves now because it's summer?
Well, right up the road, I can look out the window and see the peach orchard. It was there at the time of the battle. It is capital P, capital O, peach orchard. It is a fixture of the battlefield. It was right on that General Sickles line that I had mentioned. And those peaches are not blooming, but the peaches are getting ripe. It looks like you could definitely see the fruit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so you need to stay for another few weeks.
So now he's going to project peach pie.
Yeah, that's right.
I know. I like that.
There's also a little orchard right outside. They're replanting orchards over the field.
Find somewhere and project the Last Supper and put pizza in there.
Somehow I think people are going to get mad at that. I don't know.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
You're going to get, that's, no. I don't know if in military.
Did I cross the line there?
Probably. And I don't know if you'll get away with it in a national park unit. No, I think that's so cool that they let you do that. I mean, I haven't heard of any artist doing that or photographer doing that. So that's really
cool. Yeah, well, I have to give make history come alive.
I have to give kind of a shout out to a previous artist in residence who was working kind of similar. We came at it from different ends, but he did some projections. He did more of like he both photographed them and he did sort of like a installation with projections. So he did some very interesting work as well. That was about a year ago, but I saw him doing that and I thought, I got to get my work out there because I've been doing this and people are going to think I'm copying him or something. But he was another artist in residence, and that was very interesting stuff as well. But different approach, but kind of the same thought.
I know Nick Collier, we interviewed him before he went there, and he's interesting because he builds his own box cameras. That was interesting.
Yeah.
What he did. And I was following him and on his work. And then Chip Beck, who is in our current Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, and he's a combat artist, which I didn't even know combat artists existed, but that's a beautiful program of the National Parks Arts is teaching me a whole bunch about art that I didn't know. There really is, the sky is the limit, right? And he's going to be there in November. So he's coming out. Yeah, he'll be there in the fall, winter. And so I'm interested to see what he does with that, too. So it's just so exciting to see all the different creative sides that can be done in a military park, a battlefield. You just wouldn't think, but it's true. Okay, so the final question, and then you win $1 million, right? Phil, we have a program that we've really started this brand new little campaign to get folks to take a walk, at least one. It's called 1 Hour Walk, hashtag 1 Hour Walk on Facebook. We have a group for it, and people tweet us on Twitter. And it's really to get people to be observant. And I know as a photographer, you get that, especially like what you were talking about, getting out there at dawn and getting people to just take a 1 hour walk at least once a week. It's good for you. And just to breathe that air. So at Gettysburg, what I want to know is if you could take a 1 hour walk with someone at Gettysburg, who would it be and where would that walk be?
You mean anyone in history, that kind of thing?
Anybody. Anybody.
I would probably say Alexander Gardner, one of the early battlefield photographers, or the earliest, him and his expert crew. That's a historical figure, if that counts. I would love to pick his brain. And there's a couple of very mysterious images here. People are really into this stuff and can tell you about how some of these photographs were not quite sure where they were taken. And it would kind of change the interpretation of what they depict if we knew better where they were taken. So for sure, I would go with Alexander Gardner.
Cool.
Wow. That would be cool.
That's interesting.
I can't wait to get to Gettysburg.
Oh, you got to get out here.
Yeah, it's a great way to bring history alive, and we can't really forget our history. It's not a good thing because we'll make the same mistakes over and over if we do.
We've been in the West. It's like sure, we're gonna get there. We got some prodding from the Rangers over there, and so we're gonna get there. We're gonna go to Kentucky, hopefully in the fall. So you never know, we might cross over from Kentucky to Pennsylvania. It's not that far. It can't be that far.
No, too far.
Lincoln did it.
What I want to do is, if I'm going to be at Gettysburg, it'd be somewhere out west. It'd be Yosemite. It'd be somewhere in the Southwest where you guys are. So somewhere out there. So I understand completely.
Yeah. Oh, you could get in there.
You could go to Saguaro Park and then put people's face on cactus.
You know what? It's really no.
Right.
Well, they do really creative things out here
because the cactus look like bodies.
Yeah,
I mean, they really do.
But there's so many historic people. Yeah. Connected to, I don't care if it's Yosemite. I mean, you could have John Muir and you've got all those granite walls, the big granite, mountains, and, you could go for like Kings Canyon. Could you imagine going to Kings Canyon?
What about Mount Rushmore? Now, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. So, Bill, we're just going to send you everywhere because we have that power.
Say, don't let my wife hear this. She doesn't want to have any of these ideas come up. I think she prefer that I maybe not stay a little bit closer to home next time. So we'll see.
Yeah, but what you could do, you could go to like any of these great big cliffs, that rock faces, and say this could be the second Mount Rushmore, and it could look like this, and then you could.
Oh wow! I love this.
Artist residency.
Wouldn't it be cool?
Maybe. I like that.
Cool. Yeah. No. Wait a minute. I'm going to top this one because go to Hawaii because they have the Hawaii volcano. And then you could put people's faces in the volcano. I could give you a list.
Well, I think my wife would be on board with that if she could come along as well. I think she'd be perfectly happy with that one.
Yeah, they might. You never know. You never know. I mean, you get to stay right near these little places right outside the volcano. I mean, you could be right there.
What is it? The Dry Tortugas. Isn't the artist in residence program there
It's
say that
you have to have two
you
people.
have to take two people.
Because you are on
right.
that remote, beach island. That is so cool.
So you could project people into the ocean. Cool.
That is cool.
When
Feel a
you come
little-
up and you could project a person into the wave.
Nancy's
Cool.
going, that's
No.
what you're saying, Bill.
Sorry.
No, I'm just saying you can almost feel isolated. You kind of feel like what it's like, or what it was like in 1863 to basically not have any neighbors here. I can't imagine what the Dry Tortugas are like out there in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, I guess. That must be quite an altogether different experience.
Oh, yeah, because you're on your own out there. Yeah, you don't have, that's it. Is it dark at night? Like dark in Gettysburg?
Yeah, I wonder. Oh, well, with my first week or so here, it was basically a new moon, or I didn't see the moon at all. You kind of watch the cycle of the moon change, and you feel so much more connected with nature and the stars. Yeah, it was quite dark when you first, or the way I timed it. Now that we're coming right up on the full moon, and it really changes the character of night here quite a bit. It's absolutely a noticeable change.
Interesting, man. This is awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. And aren't you glad our show isn't at dawn? Because then you probably wouldn't call in.
That's right.
It'd be like, sorry, you're busy. But
Yeah.
I have a wonderful show tonight. And everybody keep up with, they'll just go to, on Facebook and Instagram, Gettysburg Camera. And he'll also be featured in the fall issue of Spirit of America magazine that you can see on nationalparktraveling.com. And of course, go to National Parks.org. Whatever medium you work in as an artist, go be involved. Just go check it out as just as an individual. It's really interesting, the programs that they have. I think it's awesome. We get to talk about them when Tanya's not here. So it's a cool program. Are you glad you got connected with it, Bill?
Absolutely. It is a spectacular program, and the range of the different art that they help facilitate is amazing. They really don't restrict themselves or restrict the artists.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. I think that's one of the best things. Well, listen, have a wonderful time. You enjoy your last few days there, and we look forward to watching more of your art on Facebook and Instagram.
Thank you for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's first Friday Toast to the Arts and Park Show with the National Parks Arts Foundation. Learn more about their amazing park artist residency programs. Go to nationalparksartsfoundation.org. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.